Wow. I gotta be honest here, guys. I never would have imagined, never in my life, that I'd be sitting here right now, going live, and doing a little reflection on the final chapter of Attack on Titan after shoot, what's it been now? 2 years? That's nuts, right? So the thing is, when it came to the stream I did yesterday for the final chapters part one, I didn't specifically go into spoiler territory for all the manga readers because, I felt that, you know, anime onlys are still watching. They still have no idea what's going on, based on the manga events. And I figured maybe it'd be best if I don't go into like the manga territory for them because let's say one of them's like watching the stream and it's like, whoa, whoops, I spoiled myself. And I wrestled with this idea a lot yesterday after the stream. I thought, what if I just talk about this? And it was a debate I had constantly throughout the night. I was like thinking, should I do this? Should I not do this? But honestly, the timing just felt perfect. It felt perfect because the final chapters part two is going to be upon us in a matter of days, like literal days at this point. Because when's it supposed to drop? November 4th? Like we are getting there soon. I mean, yeah, technically you could argue, well, it's lucky it's technically still weeks, but weeks turn into days and days turn into hours and hours turn into minutes. Y'all get the drift. Y'all get the drift of what I'm saying here. And the other debate I had with myself was that did I want to turn this into a live stream discussion or did I want to turn this into a pre-recorded video? Now, ultimately, when the stream's done, it's gonna be pre-recorded regardless. But I think it'd be better if I was just here right now, just giving my thoughts on on the final chapter again. Because one of the things I never got a chance to talk about when I did the initial live stream was that it was the fan translations. That was the only thing I talked about for 139. All the other chapters that came out, at the very least, post chapter 134, right? 134, 133. I forget the actual time when I started doing this, but after a certain point, when the chapters came out officially, I started covering just the official chapter releases. And I think that slightly changed a little bit towards the end with one because 138 came out unofficially, and then when the official translations came out, I then talked about like my thoughts and what I think was gonna happen in 139. But for 139, I just read like the fan translations and I kind of left it at that. And I know a lot of stuff came out post that because you had the official translations, you had the extra pages, and if I'm going to be perfectly honest here, I didn't really feel that compelled to talk about the stuff back then because the ending and like the final chapter was still like super fresh in my mind, and felt that frustration and that like what the heck just happened, you know like that feeling was still there. I was like, man, I really don't feel like talking about this. I know it's gonna get a lot of attention, a lot of attraction, and part of me was just like, I don't want to do that. I just needed to kind of like distance myself outside of say AOT No Requiem because that was a fan project and it was something I was really looking forward to because I know the people that were a part of it and they're like really cool folks. So part of me was like, I'll just keep my eye out on AOT for that. But then you know, final season part two was coming out. You were getting like the best highlight moments from the manga at the time, which I was like, do I really want to like just close it off with the final season part one? Because the thing is I started Attack on Titan with the anime from season one, and then when season one ended, I went back to the manga, and I talked about this yesterday, so I don't want to delve so heavily into this. But basically, I became a manga reader from that point after the anime ended for season 1. And then, when you've been following the manga for as long as I have, okay? Like since 2013, going all the way from 2021. Like that's a span of 8 years. There's a lot that goes into like expectations, endings, right? Like you follow a series for so long and you're seeing like this incredible journey that happens. And then you get to the ending. And for a lot of people, an ending is a make or break deal for the story, right? Because you can have like all these incredible moments. But if your ending does not stick the landing, then it's going to be a problem, right? It's going to be a huge major problem if the ending doesn't stick. And for a lot of people, that's what happened. Like you had a huge divide on the ending. You had the people that really rocked with the ending, and then you had the people that didn't rock with the ending. And here's the thing: I didn't rock with the ending, and I'll still be honest. When it comes to the ending, there are still aspects of the ending where I'm just like, bro, what the hell? But keeping in mind, a lot of that was still from like fan translations, right? And I did go back and reread the chapter again through the official translations. But part of me was still kind of just like, you already talked about this already. Like, is it really going to make that big of a difference? So now, after 2 years, and it's going to be more years to come, depending on how long this goes, but I'm here today to give y'all my little reflections on chapter 139. Also, by the way, I'm Lucky Cheese 7. I know I completely like bypassed the intro, but y'all know me at this point. Super used to be super consistent on Attack on Titan. Super consistent. But anyway, chapter 139. So you got the stuff with Armin, saying, hey, I get it. You did it for the sake of the future you saw using the Attack Titan's power. But did you really have to beat me to a pulp? Why? Was needing me that important? And Aaron basically said, hey, I was so desperate to push you all away. I even found myself wondering what I was doing. I just let the moment take over, really. Sorry. Final episode, Toward the Tree in the Hill. Now I'm not gonna go dialogue by dialogue, but essentially you got them having their, like conversation. Very Kenny and Uri, like if you will, like from the Uprising arc. It's very reminiscent of that in its own way. Though I would still argue that the Uri and the Kenny conversation, I would still say is much better given the context of what we get here. So the thing that it still kind of wrestles my mind a little bit that this entire time that Aaron didn't want to do a complete rumbling. He only did 80% to make, you know, parody look good, right? That's essentially was what he did. He did all this for the sake of his friends, right? He did all of that, so that the people on parody could be seen as heroes. If y'all stopped me, the whole world would respect you. And keeping in mind about this when it comes to Attack on Titan, let's not forget, back in 2013, Isayama did admit when it came to the ending of Attack on Titan, it did change due to the popularity of the anime. Because of how big it got and how it exploded across the world, that gave him cold feet about the ending. So I know a lot of people say, well, this is probably the original ending that he had. I again, it's still like very shaky to say what it was. I would say it was still going to be a lot grimmer than this. I'm in that mindset where I think what Isayama originally planned for was going to be a lot more grim, a lot more darker than, this. And in a sense, the funny thing is he kind of preserves that towards the end. But I mean, the rumbling will kill 80% of humanity. They'll lose the capacity to wage war. Why did you really need to go this far? Was it really for our sake? Aaron's walking off, talking about the founder Ymir. Of course, you get like these little like sequences of what Aaron and Armin always dreamed of. Like the burning water, how it flows like a river, and then the snowy fields. Like stuff like that I think was still kind of cool to see. I'm not gonna be wrong about that. But the conversation when it came to Ymir, it still irks me. Like that is a part of the story still to this day where I'm like, what? Like all this time, Ymir the founder, abused in everything, right? The big revelation of it, no, she was in love with King Fritz. No, no. That to me, and I will still say this, that still feels like a retcon. It feels like a huge retcon because you see the anguish and guilt that she had in chapter 122. And then to come all the way to here to 139 and kind of just say, oh, like she she loved King Fritz. And even Aaron says, look, I have no idea as to why she compelled herself. So that to me also just says from ECM's writing standpoint that even he has no idea why she's in love with him. I think that's really telling right there. For 2,000 years, she sought someone who'd free her from the agony of her love, and then someone appeared. It was Mikasa, which, again, to me still kind of feels odd. It's out of left field. It's kind of like, wait, what? Like, Mikasa's the one that's like breaking her like from her shackles and everything. Again, even though in chapter 122, we know based on that Aaron's the one who, talked to her, told her about her free will, that she can do anything. And that together they will do what they actually let me pull up the actual line of dialogue here. Because it has been forever. Which 122, volume 30 by itself, to this day, that still remains to be like like the peak volume in Attack on Titan. Like I used to say like volume 33 was like the last bit, and volume 33 is still good, essentially like with what we covered in the final chapters part 1, but dude, volume 30, like all the key pieces when you really think about it, all of that came into play there. And it's like it was still like really beautiful. And I still feel that to this day about volume 30. But this is what Aaron says in chapter 122. He says, "You're no slave, you're no god. You're just a person. You don't need to serve anyone. You can be the one to choose. You get to decide. You choose. Stay here for eternity or end it all." And this is all while Zeke's like trying to compel Ymir to like say, "No, don't listen to what he's saying. Like, obey my orders. Like, take away the ability to reproduce from all subjects of Ymir. Do it right now." But Aaron still goes on to say this: "Were you the one who led me here? You've been waiting all this time, waiting 2,000 years just for somebody." And again, going back to 122, Aaron specifically says this: "Were you the one who led me here?" He's talking about himself. "Were you the one who led me here? You must have been waiting all this time, waiting 2,000 years just for somebody." And look, I know the argument could be made of like, well, she didn't specifically say that she was waiting for him. But when you look at it from the context of Aaron, he's basically saying there that look, you were the one that led me down here. So when you're looking at 139, it's still like when you go from that to this, it's like okay, that still feels odd. It feels like last minute, which is how I felt back then, and it's still something I feel now. But you've got the whole ordeal with Mikasa. Like, hey, what did you say, Mikasa? I did. So you weren't listening after all. I was. Why Mikasa? And pretty much Aaron, again, you get the famous, like, well, only Emirs knows that one. As for me, even I still don't know what Mikasa will do. The only thing I know for sure is the result of Mikasa's choice. All of it has been to arrive at that conclusion. Result. Again, official translations here. That's why I moved forward. Killing 80% of humanity, forcing you to fight each other on parity, getting my precious friends involved. Wrapped up in this battle. Keep in mind about this. He says, even without knowing, you would survive. That is a key line of dialogue. People say, oh, Aaron wanted his friends to end him. Keeping in mind that he wasn't sure if they would survive. That's a super key detail. I feel everyone overlooks. Aaron himself is not sure if his friends will make it out of this, which is telling. So it's not to say that he knows his friend will, overcome all of this. No, it's not that at all. He says it right here himself. Not even lying. Official translations. Wrapped up in this battle without even knowing if you would survive it. That was the future you saw at the medal ceremony. You've been all alone since then. It must have been heard. And of course, you get what he says right here. Armin, my head's all messed up. The founder's power has made it so that there's no past or future. It all exists at once. So I had to do it. That day, that time, just knew Bertolt wasn't supposed to die yet. And Armin's like, what? And then you've got probably one of the most, arguably, like the biggest thing to me was this: the one who let him go and made her go that way. Essentially, Dina, the one who forced Dina to go in the direction that she went in, was himself. Now, instead of diving into that discussion, what does Armin do? No, let's brush past it. Let's brush past that, Aaron. And instead of talking about like the the thought process behind why he did what he did of sending Dina in that direction, considering that he would know that that's where his mom was. Instead of talking about that, they talk about Mikasa. About like her feelings and everything, right? It's like, do you think she can just forget about you and live a happy life with someone else, just like you wanted? Well, who knows? And of course, you got Armin smacking him in the face. What? Who knows? I don't ever, I don't remember ever forgiving you. What are you thinking? Disregarding Mikasa's love for you? Like what? A woman who's always valued you over everything, even her own life. Do you really think you can tell her to forget about you and be done with it? And of course, you got Aaron, you got Armin thing. She should be able to forget about the heartbreaker she loved and be happy at the very least. On the other hand, maybe she'll find someone perfect for her in no time. It was cringy in the fan translation, and again, the dialogue makes it a little bit more pretty, but it's still kind of just like, come on, guys. Like, we're really talking about this, of all things. And Aaron says no. And of course, you got the most famous The most famous panel that's been memed. Like, even to this day, this panel still just pops up, and I'm like, bro, like, how much shittery do we have to do to Aaron's character? Like, it's. He says, no, I don't want that. Mikasa finding another man? I don't want her to think about me and no one. I want her to think about me and no one else for the rest of her life. Even after I die, I want her to be hung on me for a while, 10 years at least. Now, again, it's been a couple years, right? Now, when it came to this, I remember my live reaction. I said, "What the is going on? This is not Aaron." Okay, a lot of people, even to this day, a lot of EDs like to say, "Oh, you just don't like it when Aaron cries." No, that's not true. Okay, whenever Aaron cries, yeah, sometimes, no, not even sometimes. Okay, look, when chapter 131 came out and you saw this man cry, like that had me shaking to the core. I remember reading 131 and going like, dude, that is deep. Like that like really like hit me in the cocoa. And him crying here is not the problem. It's the context of what he's crying about. And I actually made an edit about this. And let me actually share with what it was. I'm gonna pull it up here. Now, imagine that same scene, right? Take that scene. Okay. You can still have it to where they're talking about like Mikasa. Now imagine if instead of now when Aaron says what and Armin says, imagine if Aaron said this. What kind of piece of shit would kill his own mother? My purpose, my drive, it was because of her from the beginning. That should be the question running through your goddamn mind, Armin. I didn't want that at all. Don't you realize how much it hurts that I never got to tell her just how much I loved her? How I wish she was still here with me. And again, that's just an edit that I personally made. But when I originally, because I saw like this scene again, and I was gonna make a complete joke out of it, but then I was like, well, no. Let me be fair here. And let me be like actually thinking about this like comprehensively. If I were to take that scene, what exactly would Aaron talk about? And I think correlating it back to chapter one, what was the one thing Aaron said? He said that he never got a chance to tell his mom that he loved her. Now, how fitting would that have been? Again, you have that scene of Aaron crying, and he says, don't you realize how much it hurts that I never got to tell her just how much I loved her? How I wish she was still here with me. Don't you think that would have hit more deep? Like that would have like hit like so deep. Like it still would have been like a very humane thing to do. Because again, a lot of people want to say you just don't like it when Aaron cries. No, it's not the fact that Aaron's crying. It's the context as to why he's crying. I think having again that scene, but it being reflective of his mother would have been much better. So much better, in my opinion. But again, that's neither here nor there. I'm gonna look past that. But like, of course, you have Armin's like, oh, okay, I didn't expect something that pathetic. Please don't repeat that to Mikasa. I want her to be happy. I really do. Damn it. I don't want to die. I want to be with Mikasa, with everyone. And then you got Armin like being all teary eyed. Aaron, don't give up. We can find another way. No, I'm sure none of them wanted to die either. But how could I ever be forgiven? Got this beautiful shot over here of like Armin and Aaron looking over. You see like the rumbling that's happened. Even if I didn't know that you'd stop me in the end, I think I still would have flattened this world. Level almost every forest and leave the land covered in carrion flattened insects a few days later. I wanted to leave every surface a blank plane. And Armin's like, why? And then of course you got the famous like biggest tease that Isayama did, like prior to the final chapter, right? Aaron, that is your name. See, Grisha. And this to me, I thought this was a big slap in the face because Aaron says, I don't know why, but I wanted to do that. I had to. Essentially, and I mentioned this in my 139 stream. At least I think I remember mentioning it there. If I didn't, then I'm going to mention it right now. Basically, we took the Akihiko Kayaba approach from SAO. Remember when you had the SAO arc, and then when it came down to why Akihiko did what he did, and he says, "Well, I don't know." The same approach we went here. I was like Aaron, my guy. What do you mean you don't know? Like what? Like that shit doesn't make any sense. How do you yourself not know why you didn't do what you did? You know. Now, granted, the argument could again be made. Well, the founder's influence. You know, it made him like incoherent, right? It meshed with his brain, and he doesn't know. The argument could be made for that, sure, but I'm just thinking, like, bro, like, you didn't know anything, and you still just wanted to do it. Like, it pretty much takes everything Aaron was built up to from the beginning of the time skip, and it takes all that away just from this single line. Like, it's again. Then you get Aaron, you are free. You know, the you are free panel that Isayama teased. I think like in the very beginning of the War for Parity arc. Like I think this was around the time Volume 27 just finished. And he teased that this was gonna be the final panel. And I don't know, it's like even still to this day I'm trying to figure out like exactly what Chris is referring to here. Like who, you know, says to their newborn you're free. I mean, look, the argument could be made that well, Grish's reflecting on how he treated Zeke, and he's looking at Aaron and just saying, "You are free." The argument could be made for that too. But keeping in mind about this, Aaron's just a baby. He's a newborn. He like less than 2 minutes. Okay, you think a newborn baby's gonna remember that? Like, just keep it in mind. But going from there, you have Armin grabbing the seashell, and Aaron says, Armin, it's time. I'm erasing all your memories of this place. Next time we meet, we'll be trying to kill one another, but you'll remember this again once it's all over. And oh my god, this part right over here. Armin saying, Aaron, thank you. You became a mass murderer for our sake. I swear I won't let this terrible mistake you're making be in vain. Essentially, like, do y'all remember in Naruto when he called Obito the coolest guy ever, or in the official translation where he says Obito is nothing but awesome? Like that is the equivalent of this scene. This scene and that scene, oh, they go hand in hand. You want to talk about cringe? That is like the epitome of cringe. This and that scene. Like it's like you're telling this to the guy. You're like again. I understand they're best friends and everything, but it's like you became a mass murderer for our sakes, and like just thank you for that, Aaron. Just thank you. Like it's just odd that you would say something like that. Like if I were to reword that, I would say, look, Aaron, like I should be happy that you're doing all this for us. It's still messed up, but Like, make it a little bit more practical, man. Like, doing this, like, it just comes up as, like, cringy, you know? But let's see here. You got them hugging it out. I don't know what will happen after I die, but I know you can make it to the other side of the walls. Humanity will be saved by you. Going along with what Aaron told Levi and like at the very end of the Return to not the very end of Return to Shinganshina, but like when the decision was made of do we save Irwin or do we save Armin? Again, leading towards that, Armin. And then the biggest thing about this is that like this dialogue, like when you really take it in context of the story, it's basically happening during the events of chapter 131. That's the big thing about this is that all this happened before. And when you think about it like that, it's just like, really? Because you have Annie Singh already healed up, and Armin's like, huh? Annie. So there's that. You get Falco returning, not being a Titan anymore. Founding Titans like disintegrating. Same with the Colossal Titan. Armin's waking up. Now I remember. This is, and then you got Mikasa holding Aaron's head. Decapitated head, I should mind you, after she, you know, did the big smoocheroo. But you got that. You got them having their, like emotional, like super emotional, like teary eyed, like, oh my god, I cannot believe it. Our best friend's dead. I mean, look, I will say this: is it touching? Sure, it is pretty touching on that front. I'm not gonna say it's not touching, but it's kind of just like, you know, Mikasa says, Armin, you remember now too, don't you? When Aaron came to visit us, yeah, I heard the result of your choice would make the power of the Titans vanish from the face of this world. Now, the whole objective of Attack on Titan was to, eliminate the Titans, eliminate the powers, right? But my big thing is what, like, it was that easy. Like Mikasa's decision would ultimately be the benefactor of, what led to the Titans' powers being, gone. And again, I'm not saying that because like, oh, I hate Mikasa. No, I've actually never hated Mikasa to begin with. Mikasa to me, I thought she was a cool character. She's badass and everything, definitely. But to me, it was like the fate of this one character was going to ultimately be the deciding factor of like the Titan powers going away. I don't know. I thought it would have been a little bit more like intricate, a little more detailed that we could have gotten as to like what took away the power of the Titans. And honestly speaking, here's what I would have said. And I think I mentioned this in the stream I did a couple years back. Having it to where the shifters regain their form, like, are the only ones like unscathed from this, I think that would have been fine. Because having it to where like all the shifters, not all the shifters, but like even like the mindless Titans are transformed back into human, that to me, that never sat well with me. Like even back then, because I feel it would have added like the stakes of consequences, right? It would have been like really. I think what would have been better is say the shifters are the ones that remain human. They're free from like the Titan curse. The mindless Titans, because again they're not shifters, so they're the ones who they perish. Again, it would have still kind of been tragic because it's like, man, like you lose Jean, you lose Connie, you lose Gabby. It would have been like, dude, like it's still would have been pretty messed up. But on one hand, though, it still would have been a victory for the alliance, but it would have came with consequences, you know. And that's what I think was missing was here because if you had it to where like the citizens, you know, weren't free, it still would have been like, man, we won, but we lost people along the way because that's how war is, right? Like when you get to the final battle, like, and here's the thing: people want to say, "Well, Hanji died and Magath died," and yes, those casualties happened, but we have to keep in mind that happened pre-final battle, not during final battle, and I think that's something we need to understand here is that the final battle itself, it should have came with some casualties. At least one person from Parody and one person from Marley. Like, if I were to pick one person from Marley, I do think Reiner probably should have been the one that went out. Because when you look at Reiner's character, Reiner and Aaron, they kind of mirror one another, right? When you think about what Reiner did and what Aaron did, like they're almost like parallels in a way. So I think getting rid of Aaron, in my opinion, should have also been a case for Reiner. You get rid of Reiner, you get rid of Aaron, because it's like two sides of the same coin. One can't exist without the other. You have the light and you have the darkness, which it depends on the reader who you view as the light and the darkness in the situation. But it's a basic terminology of one can't survive without the other. And I think in the case of Attack on Titan, it would have been fitting, at least on that front. Vanish from the face of this world. You got Jean crying, now I remember. Concessious piece of shit. And oh my god, I remember in the fan translation, Reiner was like, Aaron, what a man you are. But here he says, Aaron, you really are a dot dot dot. So he never finishes off with what he says. And then you got Connie, Aaron, he said even my mom would go back to being human. Which again, if we're taking the context of like the abnormal Titans not being able to revert back to Titans, Connie and Jean would have still been like gone. Same thing with Gabby too, but you know. And then you got Annie. He said for us to live long. And then she says, like, what about you? I never asked you for this, you suicidal blockhead. Huh? I wish I could have talked to him. That's what Peak says. And of course, Annie hugs it out with her dad. Welcome back. I'm home, Dad. Falco's like, Gabby. And then you got Levi looking over. Hey, guys. You see that? Now, again, I don't remember specifically how I felt about the scene back then. I mean, it is a touching scene given was who Levi is, but I do think, honestly speaking, because I remember Isayama saying that as far as the alliance goes, Levi was supposed to die, but the editors told him not to kill him off, which it is what it is, right? So I mean, you still could have had this scene technically. I think you still could have had the scene and maybe like say like you have like Levi, very similar to Hanji, where like he wakes up and he sees them and they like talk it out. But I mean, that's a nice scene. I'm not gonna say it's bad. I guess this is it. What you dedicated your hearts for. And then you got the Survey Corp salute. Then you got Sasha with Jean and Connie. It's kind of emotional too. Then you got Gabby and Falco looking at each other, and look. Now, if I'm looking at that right, it looks like they're like making out and everything, right? That's the at least implications I'm getting just based on that. Then you got Reiner and Karina, which I talked about this whole ordeal in the final chapter stream I did, so I'm not going to delve so much into that. But I mean, hypocrisy. I'm just going to say that for her. But you got Reiner saying, "Mom, I guess I'm not the armor titan anymore." Is that so? That's wonderful. Huh? I'm sorry for everything. This is all I ever needed. And then we cut back to Mikasa and Armin, and Mikasa says, "I should go." And Armin's like, "Huh? Where? If I stayed here, I doubt they'd give Aaron a proper burial." You're right. Let him rest somewhere quiet. Aaron always liked to nap there, referring to, like the tree he always used to hang around. And Armin's like, "Yeah, I think that's a good place." Get that? She's walking off. Which a lot of people are probably kind of assuming, like, okay, so how exactly did Mikasa get back to parody? And I do wonder how the anime is going to tackle that. That is one thing that had me curious because it was such a topic of discussion, and it's still a topic of discussion that goes on to this day. Of like, so how does she get back to parody? Because Onyankapon's still down, and unless, and I'm guessing this is probably what happened. Unless Onyankopon was like so far off from, like the citizens of Marley, maybe she got on board the plane and they were able to like fly back there. Maybe that's a case that happened, but again, that's just speculation. But if I had to take a guess, that's probably what happened. Probably. Because how else is she gonna like go back? Because no one's a Titan now. You see that? You got Armin looking over. You got Mueller. You got, you know, the warrior parents. Got the Alliance. Please, Secretary Mueller. Aaron Yeager's dead. The power of the Titans has vanished. We are nothing more than people now. And he's like, can you prove that to me? Right here and now. And he's like, give it the blood test you want. Here, now. Now, before I actually continue on, let me go ahead and close out my email app because that's gonna go off like every eh, at least every hour. So just to be on the safe side. Here and now, please prove it. Are you human or are you Titans? And then you get Armin rolling in. If we did still have the power of the Titans, we'd be using it to fight you. But the fact that we continue to be powerless, even as you point your guns at us, is the greatest possible proof of our humanity. And Mueller's like, who are you? And Armin says, I am Armin Arler, an Eldian from the island of Parody, and the man who killed Aaron Yeager, the attack type. Now, the biggest difference when it came to the official translations, no, even with the official translations, because this didn't come out technically until we got the volume, but when I read the translations initially, we didn't get these pages. The pages with Mikasa and Ymir, where Mikasa's talking and she's like, "So it was you. You were the one who always looked inside my head. I'm sure your love was a long, long night." Actually, that would have been actually a fitting chapter title. Imagine if the chapter title for this was called "A Long, Long Night." That actually would have been really fitting, especially with considering the ending of the chapter two, which we'll get there. I can't return the life that was stolen from you. Even so, the lives you gave birth to are why I'm alive today. And I know a lot of people are saying, like, wait, is this like an alternate reality of Ymir, like, just being there for her kids and like King Fritz like being like, yo, like bye, you're gone. It's not that. It's honestly just a, like what if scenario of, what Ymir wish she did. That's honestly what the scene is. Like the more you look at it. But then you get Mikasa saying, "Sleep well, Ymir." She's taken Aaron. And y'all know I was going to talk about this. Y'all know when this part came up, I was going to talk about this. And that's pretty much the bits with Historia. And man, Historia was so wasted in the final arc. Like, it's like I talked about how upset I was when I read this part and the fan translations. And I still feel that to this day. that he like pretty much wrote off Historia, and like she really like when you look at the narrative of the story, the whole pregnancy subplot, right? And really, it's like you just had her be pregnant just so she didn't do anything in the story. And for a character like Historia, when you consider the arc she had in the Uprising arc, like the development she went through, and that's the treatment she got, it's like, come on, bro. Like she deserved far better treatment than what she got in the final arc. That's the one thing I will say. I think she deserved far more better than that, my personal opinion. And like, look, here's the thing. Even if we had Aaron as the father, okay, which I know is a topic a lot of people like to discuss, and I was a big advocate supporter of that. Still am, by the way. But at the very least, like if you made Aaron the father, even with this scenario, with him like dying and everything, like it still would have like amounted to something, in my opinion. But again, neither here nor there. 3 years have passed since the battle known since the battle since the day known as the battle between heaven and earth. Those who survived after an unfathomable number of lives were taken are still tormented by the healing scars. As the world suffers through this loss, their fears have come true. The nation of Eldia has formed a so-called army controlled by the Jaegerists, who now focus their efforts on building their military strength, fearful of retaliation from what is left of humanity on the other side of the walls. The island cries out as one. If we win, we live. If we lose, we die. If we don't fight, we can't win. Fight, fight. The fight will not end until either Eldia or the world disappears. This is what Aaron said. And perhaps he was right after all. Even so, he chose to leave this world in our hands. And we are alive now. Now this part I'm gonna brush past because like this whole conversation here. You have Reiner sniffing at the letter, which that when you consider everything Reiner went through and the trauma and like you get this, it's like, come on, man. Like why? Like just being like, oh man, her handwriting's so pretty. Like that never sat well with me, and it still doesn't sit well with me. And how many times I have to tell you not to lust over after a married woman, you creep? Which again is kind of odd that John mentions that because when you consider chapter 107, 108, it gets revealed to us in that chapter that her and the farmer never got married. So the fact that it's mentioned that yeah, like you're married, that yeah, oh yeah, she's a married woman. No, not according to chapter 108. But you seem awfully concerned about how your hair looks yourself, John. Trying to look good for someone, for all the girls who ever open a textbook. And Reiner says, "Don't you mean the field guide to the horses? It's a damn shame you got a new lease on life, Reiner." That's what Jean's saying. And then Annie says, "Parodies within sight now. Armin, do you really think this is going to work? We destroyed the walls, we betrayed the island, we killed Aaron, a man revered by the people of Eldia. Y'all's friend, by the way. Yeah, y'all killed him. And we're the allied nations ambassadors for peace talks. Personally, I wouldn't be shocked if they sank our ship right here. Believe in Historia. Her Majesty's first move was to protect Jean's relatives and my mom. I know she'll defend us too. I wonder if she would have, though. Make us weak little things. And that's what Annie says. And then Armin says, any conflict will never vanish. And he says, but when they see us all together like this, they want to hear about our story. There you have Levi being rolled over with. Why am I blanking on her name right now? Gabby. Gabby, Falco, and Onyankopon. My man Finn over here from Star Wars. Like Finn really came from Star Wars and said, "Look, I got treated like shit in the sequel trilogy, so I'm coming over here in AOT now." Whether or not he got a better treatment, I mean, at least he had a role. I'll say that compared to the sequel trilogy, at least on Capone had a role. I'll at least give on Capone that. Anyway, why those who tried to kill one another for so long have appeared on parody to advocate for peace. They'll want to know what we saw. Let's tell them everything. You got the bird flying off. You see the feather falling. Cut back over to that location where Aaron used to love to be at. The tree on that hill. You got Mikasa with her scarf on. Her hair is getting a little longer too. Aaron, everyone will be coming to visit you soon. Looking over at the tombstone. Isn't that nice? And she's thinking it back to like that day, from chapter one. You see her crying. I miss you so much. And then you got the bird coming through, wrapping the scarf around Mikasa, very symbolic of chapter 50. I'll wrap that scarf around you forever and ever. It's one of those things. See her crying. I'm not gonna lie, this one panel over here where you see her like being like so moved, this to me looks like Mikasa when she was younger. The way how Isayama has her drawn here, like, and maybe that's the point he was trying to go. Because I remember when I looked at that panel, I'm like, was he trying to make her look like how she was like back in the day? Because it looks almost like she never aged, but it's just in that moment. And you have her saying, "Thank you for wrapping the scarf around me, Aaron." Now, keep in mind about this. Up until that point, like this was the last page of Attack on Titan. This was the last page we had gotten of Attack on Titan before the volume came out. This was it. So I remember reading this as the final page and thinking, like, bro, what? Like that's how we're ending it? Like we're ending it like kind of sunshine and rainbow-ish? If you will, like it felt kind of odd for an ending for Attack on Titan. And then the extra pages came out, which I know that caused like a huge other level of meltdown for the fan base. Like it was it was something, and again, it was something I didn't want to talk about because I still felt back then that I was like, it's like, man, like is it really worth talking about it? But again, given that it's a part of the volume, like it's perfect to talk about this. So years have passed by, and you see Mikasa visiting the grave again with a child and a husband behind her, which I think very much it's Jean. Like, there's no denying that this isn't Jean, and especially like if you look at the kid too, and you look back at chapter 127, it looks like the same baby. So, and if you remember what Jean wore, especially in was it episode 3? Episode 3 or episode 2, like I forget, but like there's like this one guy that's like just walking, and he's got like the hat on, but that was clearly Jean. So J- Jean Casa Cannon? I mean, hey, I'm up for it. Like Jean and Mikasa was appearing that I think very much, you know, did make sense, especially considering that, like how much kind of Jean cared about her and everything. So if that's what this is, if this is like Isayama, which I think he did confirm this like in an interview that yes, this is very much indeed Jean and Mikasa getting together and they have a family. If that's what this is, then hey, that's cool. But her like visiting Aaron's grave, you got that. Some more years pass by. You see how far parodies come, and a lot of people are kind of assuming that this is like decades later. not decades, but like centuries later. I don't think it's that. I think this is like 50 years down the line. It really does feel like this is like 50 years later because Mikasa's a little bit more elderly. I'm assuming that's still Jean behind her. You notice their child and their child when I'm just assuming a few more like offsprings, right? And you see her put the flower down. You see her passing away. And then you get this panel. Oh my god. Like, I'm not gonna lie. When I saw this panel right here, y'all have no idea how happy I was because something I said for months prior to the final chapter. You have if you have Aaron letting the Alliance win, or even if the Alliance beats him, with Aaron attempting to do the full rumbling, and if they indeed kill him, they try to do peace talk negotiations and everything. The thing to keep in mind, and I always said this, if parody, not parody, if the Alliance wins, parody's doomed. I said that for months. And what I love about this page is that exact quote I mentioned came to fruition. Because you have like I think they're called B strikers, right? B2 strikers? Let me double check this real quick. Yeah, so the B2 spirits. That's kind of what they represent. They almost look alike too. Let me see. Yeah, so Isayama kind of took the designs of like the B2 ships and kind of incorporated that here with like the bombing rate of parity. And again, what I love about this is that it proves to anyone who was rocking with the Alliance that, yeah, you thought peace talks, negotiations, y'all thought that was gonna amount to anything? No, it didn't. Like, he just said, no, parity's gone. Like, the 50 years that passed by, no, that's not what happened here. Parity's like gone. So I appreciate Isayama for proving my point correctly that what the Alliance did, what they succeeded, amounted to nothing. I appreciate that. Like, look, you thought peace talks, you thought like everyone having kumbaya, doing talk no jutsu. Y'all thought that was gonna matter something in the end? No, bro. That's not what happens. We ain't doing that. We don't rock with that. That's not what happens. So I appreciate that he at least showed this. That, no, look, you still get a bleak outcome. And again, it's I mean again, it's kind of messed up for me to say that, but it's just a point that I had like because it was something I had to deal with for months. Of like, oh, like if the alliance wins, they can have like the peace talks, the negotiations, the world will be safe. Yeah, the world will be safe. But what about parity? Like, oh, they can just talk it out. Nope. Not what happened here. But you see what happens over here. The buildings are like leveled and decimated and everything. And the tree has grown too. Like the tree has grown a really significant like height. And you see like this boy who's walking. I'm assuming he's like Mikasa's descendant. That's the vibe I get, is that this is, like, probably, like, her descendant. She's with the dog, and they're walking, and you see that the tree has it's not formulated, but it's turned into the same tree that Ymir kinda walked into and kinda how she got her Titan powers. And in a sense, you could kinda say this proves I mean, it also kind of devalues what Aaron was striving for too, about getting rid of the Titan powers. Because ending it off like this, I think it's a very open-ended story with this, but and I've seen arguments too, like, well, we don't know what happens when he enters that tree. But again, in looking at the context of the story and seeing with what happened to Ymir, I think, honestly speaking, You have the boy there. He's walking into a tree, and again, Aaron's is like buried, right? So this is like years down the road. But remember, the hallucigenia was it's not something that just goes away. Like that thing can show back up at any point in time. So to me, it just kind of showcases that, like, yo, Attack on Titan could come back in the future with this kid, and like maybe you could get the whole story of like, well, no, this time for sure, we'll we'll get the proper ending. At the very least, that's what it looks like to me. That's what it said to me. But I mean, do the 8 pages fix? Like the thank you for wrapping the scarf around me, Aaron. And people have been kind of like 50-50 on this. You either have people that really rock with the extra pages, or you have people that really don't rock with the extra pages. Personally, for me, like it doesn't fix the chapter, but it does make it somewhat better. I will say that it does make it somewhat better. Like if these 8 pages didn't exist, I would have honestly still said that, like, this ending, like for Attack on Titan, it wouldn't fit. I still would have said that, for Attack on Titan, like this is still too happy. It's still like too happy of an ending. So to get these extra pages, I think does make it fitting in that sense. That okay, this is more in line with Attack on Titan in its own way. But y'all remember the thumbnail that I picked? If y'all clicked on the video and y'all saw the thumbnail, I want to explain something. So that thumbnail comes from the Attack on School casts. Pretty much the little extra bonuses that we get in the volumes for Attack on Titan. Like Isayama, I forgot when he started drawing this. I think it was like towards the tail end of the Return of Shinganshina arc. But he started doing like these little illustrations for like the cast of Attack on Titan, but like in like a high school setting. And those were honestly great. I really like uh those little bonuses that we would get. But the thing is, with this particular bonus that we got for Skullcasts, you have end credits, and you have Mikasa, Armin, and Aaron like at a theater watching a movie. It's all over. How did you like the last episode? And Mikasa's like, I thought it was good. It was really a long story. All the foreshadowing really paid off. The characters got a proper send off too. So dot dot dot. And then what I love here is Armin says, "Oh, makes sense. You don't read the fan sites." And she's like, "I'm sorry, sympathizer to the dark, but your voice is too quiet for me to hear." And Armin's like, "There were so many loose ends, and I predicted the ending to this series for over 10 years. Sorry to say, it's exactly what I thought it'd be. Didn't you want them to subvert your expectations? But, in a good way?" And then you have this it's kind of like you have the ending defenders and the people and the ending haters. You have, like, the 2 camps, right? Like, a conversation that still goes on to this day. Mikasa representing the ending defenders, and Armin representing the people that didn't like the ending. And Mikasa's like, "Oh, come on. Maybe they're intentionally leaving things open-ended so we can bring our own interpretation to it. Or maybe it was just meant to be a simple the end. Aren't there times when it's easier to relate to people with flaws? Every once in a while, at least." And Armin's like, How does that do anything to address all the questions and gripes I have? I've been waiting for this day for so long, for, for 10 years. Wow. We're really diving into the 10 years joke. And they're looking over at Aaron like, "Hey, like, what do you think?" And Mika's like, "It wasn't that awful, was it?" And Aaron's like, Like Aaron's like that one guy where he doesn't like exactly give his viewpoint on it. It's like, well, I like going to the movies with you too. So I think if they ever make a sequel, which I kind of wonder if that's ACM being a little cheeky about that, I think we should go to that one too. They both looking over at each other. And then you got them talking like, I still can't believe it. Titans really this was key. Is you have them saying like Titans really existed a hundred. So this is probably like another 50 years down the line, but it's like another 100 years. 100 years ago. Well, there's no telling how much of that was based on actual history. It'd be cool if those three childhood friends really existed. Yeah, I agree. Basically, in a sense, that Aaron, Armin, Mikasa, like over time, like they got reincarnated without like outright saying they got reincarnated. But when I said in the thumbnail as like the real ending, I want to say this. Actually, before I get to that, so how is my viewpoint on the ending now? I mean, it's still disappointing. Like, if we're just taking the ending from before the extra 8 pages, I will still say the ending was still kind of just like it. It still felt lackluster. The extra 8 pages make it somewhat salvageable to me. Salvageable in a way where it's like if I gave the original ending like absolute shit prior to the 8 pages, the extra 8 pages, they turn it from shit plus to like meh plus arguably okay. That's kind of where it turns into for me. But let me throw a little icing on the cake here. Okay? Let me throw in this little icing of the school cast extra. Now, we're all expecting the final chapters part 2 to end with this scene. With the boy and the dog and they're walking through the tree. Now, imagine we see that, and then as we get to that scene, imagine if it like just pans out and you see a theater screen and you see again Armin, Aaron, and Mikasa like again at the theater and they're just watching this, okay? And they have this exact conversation that I mentioned from school casts. Like, could you imagine the discussions that would be going on with the anime onlys? Like, it's such a meta commentary that if you throw that in to like the final chapters part 2, like there would be a lot of talk and debates between the anime onlys and like just thinking about it from like the perspective of manga readers, it would be like, bro, whoa, like you mean to tell me all this time what we've been watching was just a movie? Like, and that's kind of actually the other reason why I was compelled to doing the stream because when I saw the school casting, I was like, dude, like it just like an image glowed into my mind, and I was like, I need to talk about this because if this is what we're doing for the final chapters part 2, and if we end it off like this, like that, I think would generate a much bigger discussion for the anime community. It really would. And think about like what it would do for like generations and like for years and years to come. Because it would totally flip everyone's perspective on how they view Attack on Titan. It's like you're seeing like this epic tale unfold. And you see with how people feel about the ending. And then, like I said, the camera pans out. and you have Armin and Mikasa, like, just having, like, these, like, discussions, like, these debates on how they feel. One feels, like, really good about the ending. One just kinda like, "Man, but, like, all these, like, things I predicted," and I'm like, "For, like, 10 years, like, really? That's it?" It would be again, such a meta take for the anime, and, again, maybe you could say it's just me being on copium. Not copium, but hopium. But I honestly do hope that the final chapters do include this. I really do. Because, man, like, uh, personally, I will say this. Because now, if I take the school cast approach, suddenly that math plus the okay, so, like, for me, it raises from, like, okay plus, it raises from okay to good. Just based on that alone, because sorry, I'm gonna grab some water real quick, 'cause I've been talking for a while. But I'm saying it raises from like mad to okay, like mad plus to okay to good, because again, and I'm regurgitating here at this point, but like again, it's so meta, and it would really emulate how the fan base is feeling, you know. But that's all I really gotta say. That's all I gotta say when it comes to my reflection on chapter 139. Again, how I felt originally. Originally, absolute shit. With the extra 8 pages, like mad plus, eh, okay, whatever. But with the school cast, okay, like that's good. If we take the school cast's extras as canon, then yeah, an argument could be made that this is good. But I'm gonna say this right now: if the anime does end off with just the boy and the dog going up to the tree, it's gonna feel very sequel bait heavy for sure. It's going to. But again, that's just my thoughts and my views on just my reflections for chapter 139. Because again, I still have my frustrations with what we got with the chapter, with Aaron, with just how we resolve things. And again, that's just pre extra chapters and pre the what's it called, the school cast stuff. But that's just my thoughts. I've also noticed that I've gotten some comments here too. Let's see here. Great so far. I don't. I hope I'm not butchering her name. Is it Kafu Kawami Kame? I'm gonna say Kafu for short, just to make sure that I'm not butchering anything. I think Aaron saying "I don't know" is not supposed to mean he does not know why he did the rumbling, but more like he is describing his nature, similar to what he said in 121 to Zeke. I mean, that's one way you can look at it, I guess. And also, the point is that Ymir loving the king was supposed to be seen as a nightmare. Like, Ymir desired love and affection, like shown in 122, of her, wrathing, or no, I think you mean watching, yeah. Watching the king kiss a woman, I guess. I can see your reflections, so it's cool. Hey, I'm glad, like you're having a great time with this. I'm enjoying this. I don't think what they did was meaningless. I mean, they were able to save innocent lives. They did. I'm not gonna say that they didn't, because they did save the world. But when you consider who we followed from the beginning of the story, and you see the result of like what saving the world did, again, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. It was a matter of like, yeah, we saved the world, but look at how the world views us. It's one of those things. But again, I'm not sitting here and arguing. I'm just saying that yeah, like it's just like okay, well, look at what the world did in return. you know? But overall, those are my thoughts on this Attack on Titan chapter 139 reflections. Honestly, it feels like really great to just, just finally like, just get this off my chest and really in a sense kind of come to peace in terms with the manga because I never like realistically speaking, like I never would have thought just looking at chapter 139 and being like, man, like what the fuck just happened with Attack on Titan? And like I said, just looking at the chapter by itself, there are moments there in the chapter that still make me go, man, what happened? Like, how exactly did we come to this? And there are still parts in the chapter that do make me cringe. I'm not denying that. And again, for me personally, taking out the extra pages, taking out the extras, if you're just looking at with what happened, it is one of those things where it's like, okay, like we could have done so much better. We really could have. Like I think for an ending of Attack on Titan, again, I'm not. Well, actually, no, that's gonna spark for a whole different discussions, and I don't want to. That's a discussion I really don't want to like get super in depth into because I know where it's gonna lead. So I'm gonna just leave it with that. Again, it was really fun doing this. Reflections on Attack on Titan chapter 139 after 2 years, and again, it just feels great to like just finally have a closing on this book that I've had, and just just getting this like off my chest after so long. Now, does this mean I'm an ending defender? Hell no. Let me just say that right now. It doesn't mean I'm an ending defender. Hell to the no. It just means that now I've found some like legitimate things that I am kind of like actually happy about. But with that being said, that's pretty much all I got when it comes to this Attack on Titan reflections discussion video. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are on Attack on Titan. How do you guys still feel about the ending? Um, do you still have any gripes with the chapter like I do? Do you still have bits where you're just like, man, like what the hell, Isayama? And also, what do you guys think? Sequel baiting or not sequel baiting? Because I still feel like this is very much sequel baiting in its own way. And how do y'all feel about the meta commentary from the Skullcast Extra? Let me know what you guys thought there in the comments below. And aside from that, guys, that's pretty much it. I'm Lucky7. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more Attack on Titan. And yes, there will be more Attack on Titan videos coming. Because, yeah, Fly is going to be here soon. Fly is going to be coming, and I will do a separate video on that in the future. But that being said, you guys, the next time you'll probably see me will be when the final Shatters Part 2 drops. So, I will catch you guys next time. And Kafu, thanks so much for, being here. It was so much fun having you here, just reading your comments, reading your thoughts. And I'm glad that you think the ending's okay. And I'm glad you can see the frustration too. But again, with that said, I'm going to head on out of here. So I hope you all have a great day and stay safe. Peace.